try to, no applause, just listen to what they're saying. If you have a question, there are some paper these that you can just fill out, and we'll have somebody pick them up, and at the end, if we have time, we will ask them. And for the candidates, the rules for the candidates are basically, be civil, be nice. Don't step on somebody else's time when they are speaking. If you have a question that you need asked, you might want to wait until after that person, but that could also come into your time. So think of that. And also, I will leave to Mr. Hart to tell people how much time they actually have to speak. Because that's what that means.
2 minutes. So most of the questions, that'll be plenty, but some of them you're going to have to cut to the chase. So 2 minutes, and that gives us 8 minutes for each of you as we go along. So 8 minutes in total. So thank you so much, and here we go.
Okay, our first question is going to be, if each candidate could just tell us a little bit about themselves so they could know, the audience can learn about them, where they come from, how long they've been here in Queen Creek. John?
Sure, I'll kick it off. So, is this on? Okay. Thank you to the Independent and the Chamber for having us, and thank you all for taking your time to come out today. My name is Dawn Olfont. I am born and raised in Arizona. I have lived in Queen Creek going on 17 years. I live here with my husband and my 2 boys. They're teenagers now. When we moved here, they were just little tiny ones, and so they've grown up here and gone to all the Queen Creek schools and enjoyed what Queen Creek has here. I've been on council, as you know. I'm running as an incumbent for many years now. I love to give back to my community. That's one of the reasons that I ran for council all those years ago. I volunteer at the schools, and I have since my kids have been little. I've held all sorts of board positions, volunteer board positions at the school. Being a mom is very important to me. I currently hold the president position for the PTO at Queen Creek High School. I've sat on several booster club boards throughout the high school as well. I've helped raise thousands and thousands of dollars for the kids there at the schools. I've also sat on the Relay for Life board for many years, raised money for cancer and to give back to our community. And I am currently a member of the the auxiliary, the American Legion Auxiliary now. And so I was a charter member of that. And so I love to raise money and give back to our veterans here in our community. So that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you very much. It's actually at 30 sentences there.
Oh, right.
Okay, so now, I know this is your father, Mr. McWilliams, but if you could also tell the audience a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in Queen Creek, and what you're involved in.
So, Matt McWilliams, and I moved to Queen Creek 11 years ago from my home state of Arkansas, and I came kind of like the second half of my kids' youth, so they went to Cortina Elementary, and they attended actually several of the high schools here, Higley and ALA as well. So just have loved the town. I live in Cortina. It's a great neighborhood, and it's indicative of many of the neighborhoods in town. And I've been involved in the Boy Scouts there in Cortina as well. And for the last 2.25 years, I served on the Planning and Zoning Commission here in the town of Queen Creek, where I got to see the projects that were being brought forth to the town, see what we were doing with our general plan, how we were planning for the future, and got to dive into those issues and use my expertise as an attorney. I built houses as well back in my home state and practiced real estate law as well. So I applied those to the Planning and Zoning Commission along with the other commissioners who also brought a wealth of experience, and we planned those things and approved those things to move them forward to the town council. And so now I'm looking forward to being able to serve in a broader capacity. We'll still have those types of issues that come up in the town, and they're actually quite crucial to a town like Queen Creek. We are growing, just like all the other towns in Arizona, but Queen Creek is doing it at a fantastic rate, and it takes careful planning. As I've said many times, Queen Creek is a young town. We have really one shot at getting it right, and I enjoy working and solving those things to plan for things that will happen that are good for us today, but also looking at the future for my kids and my grandkids, hopefully that we're all here. So I appreciate all of you coming out. I appreciate the Independent and the Chamber for being here, and I look forward to getting to know each of you as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for our next candidate, it's, this is what you hear when you look over. Okay? So, for candidate McClure, why don't you tell us about yourself, how you're involved in the community?
Love to. Thank you, Janet. So yeah, my name is Brian McClure. I was born and raised in Queen Creek, and what a great place. I will die here until they pat my face with a shovel. This is my home. I love Queen Creek, and I love being a part of what goes on here, not just as a resident, but as a small business owner. My wife and I have been married 19 years. We have 5 amazing children, and we obviously want to set it up for the future, for future generations. And so there's times where candidates they truly are here to serve and lift their community, and then there's times where there's some political agenda, and I have none. I am definitely the first type, and I just truly love being involved. Like I said, I'm a business owner, so I've been involved with the chamber as an ambassador, and as well as on the board, and been very focused on having a business-friendly environment. In that, I'm in financial services. I have a great grasp on finance and economics. I think it's very important for a strong economy. I've been involved heavily in church and Boy Scouts of America. I served on the census committee for the town, and of course graduated of the Citizens Leadership Institute, which was a phenomenal experience learning about all the great things that go on here. And so just happy to be here. Appreciate you guys coming out. This is amazing.
Thank you so much. Now, for candidate Padilla, you've got your 2 minutes. Tell us the same thing. Introduce yourself and a little bit of background about what you've done here at Queen Creek.
Did I hear 15 minutes? That's very generous.
No.
I'll take the 15 minutes, everybody. My name is Travis Padilla. I am running for Queen Creek Town Council, and half of the audience is staffed with my family members. So let me just have you raise your hands real quick so you know they know who you're. This is my mother, Cheryl. This is my stepfather, Bill. This is my oldest daughter, Madeline Padilla. She's 18. She just got into BYU promo, so congratulations to her. I was way too dumb to do that when I was her age. This is Hallie. She's 16. And then I have 2 other daughters, Olivia and Kennedy Padilla. And then we have this little rugrat that's 4 years old, and I handed out to a lot of you my palm card here that you can learn a little bit about us. It's got a picture of our family in our backyard. I believe that I represent the Queen Creek demographic. It has children from 4 to 18 years old. We have 5 of them. I live the American dream. I'm grateful to live here. I think it's the greatest town that we could ever move to. That's why we came here from San Antonio, Texas 13 years ago. Spent 10 years in Cortina, 3 years in the Chandler Heights Hawes area. We absolutely love it. As far as involvement in the community, so I'm a business owner of 18 years and recently just sold a portfolio of clients after building up my business, which happened to be, and I'm very blessed, the single largest and highest valuation of any merchant services portfolio ever in the history of the industry. And now I want to put my business skills to work for the town. I am the political outsider. I have never been involved in government, and I think that's the biggest reason why you should vote for me. As far as involvement with my children, much like was mentioned, there's something called Boy Scouts of America, which I've got some experience in. And then with my daughters, we did Venture Crew, which is a little bit different. We get to go do high adventure activities such as canoeing, kayaking, 5-mile backpacking into the belly of Glacier National Park with my oldest 2 daughters. They were champions. 55-mile hikes, didn't complain. It was awesome to instill common sense and wisdom in these kids and skills that they have to be able to work toward the future. So I enjoy doing that with them and with their friends. So thank you.
And now we are going to start with you again and go back and forth on the table. Council candidate Padilla, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Why are you running? I mean, beyond your family, tell us why you are running for this position, why you think it's important to the town.
Well, I can't separate why I'm running from my family because they are the reason I am running. I want so recently Queen Creek, we all know, was just voted as the #1 place to raise a family in the United States. I don't know if the microphone comes out or not. And we want to keep it that way. So I want my 5 children to be able to raise their children, my future grandchildren here, to be able to go to good schools, to be able to live in safe neighborhoods, to be able to start businesses here within a deregulated environment. I want this to continue to be a good place to live. We all know a lot of people who grew up in, let's say, Phoenix or Mesa and moved out here to Queen Creek, right? Sorry, was this not on? Now you can hear it? Okay, thank you. So they all moved out here to Queen Creek for a reason, because it was a great place to live. Now, we make decisions on a daily basis on council that's going to affect what our town looks like 10, 20, 30 years from now. And I want them to not have to move to the next town that became the next Queen Creek because we made decisions that were poor and ruining our town. And so I'm here to make sure that we keep government within our bounds, that we're fiscally responsible. We've got to fix a lot of these roads. We'll go into the talking points later, but there are some things that need to be fixed. And ultimately, I think what is needed in politics today is someone who will stand up against the status quo of government, who will say, this is not good for us, let's not go along just to get along, like many political insiders do. I'm not that candidate. I have no problem speaking up, as my mom will tell you. She hates it all the time. And my family ultimately said, if you're so passionate about politics, go get involved locally, and I decided to do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. And it's candidate before. Same question for you. Is, why are you running? Why have you decided to run for Queen Creek City Council?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. Really, it does boil down to creating a family-friendly environment. I love the small town feel. It's talked about how we have, big town amenities now, but yet we still have that special feeling of Queen Creek, and I love that. I love that, we can, do things that will create open spaces, that will allow us to be able to get across town smoothly. And for me, I want to make sure that we have great public safety, and we'll, I'm sure, talk more about that. But I think that's super important to protect our families and preserve our great lifestyle. And and again, I'm back to strong economy. I think that's very important for us to attract small business, to have high wage jobs, and so we can cut down on commutes, but we can make sure that proper zoning is done and we're able to feel at home, right? And it's the people that make that, and I love the people here. I love the incredible folks that have moved in that I've had the pleasure of getting to know. It's just exciting, all the walks of life, and we can work together to make sure that it is continues to be that small town feel and a special place for, like Travis said, generations to come.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Williams, you know it's your turn.
Thank you. So I think I touched on that as well. The main reason I'm running is all of you that are here. I represent you, and I bring a certain set of skills to the town. And like I said before, the town is facing really challenges in their growth, and the decisions that we make and the decisions that councils make, and meeting with the founders and the decisions that they made, and learn what were they thinking back then. All of those inputs help me understand what we're trying to accomplish here in Queen Creek. And it's largely been successful so far. As we continue to grow, those decisions get magnified, and we need to be very careful and approach these in a way that we understand all the factors that will come in to play, and not just a simple knee-jerk to things, but rather let's think forward of what we're doing and how we can do that. And again, with that, we need the input of our citizens. We've had the surveys that have gone around, and they've been so influential when we read what the citizens want. And those things as well will guide me, because I'm willing to listen and understand what people want and what they believe they need in the town, and then address those things. And as the other candidates have said, we'll be talking about many of those in detail that we're going to do. And again, just like the others, you can't help but be grateful to be in the town of Queen Creek. And part of that, my gratitude is wanting to keep it that way, make decisions that will keep it that way for my children, hopefully my grandchildren as well. We have outstanding citizens. Many of you that I know could be right here just like me as well. And you may do that in the future. Maybe you're here tonight because you think, maybe I would do that one day. When you do that, right, you'll have the same kind of desires and passions that I do as well, which is to do the best thing for Queen Creek, make it, continue to keep it as one of the greatest places to live in America. I moved here from another state, and I can promise you I'm just so grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Olfont, you've been answering this question for some time, so I want to give it another try. Why are you running again?
Okay, thank you. Well, when I started many years ago, it was to give back. It was to give back to the community. We were much smaller back then, and it just seems like each cycle there was so much more to do, and our town was growing and people were moving in, and now we've been voted the #1 place to raise a family. And it's just a really great community. We're working on roads. Those have some improvements to be done, but they take time. Roads take time to be built. And we knew several years ago that at some point, us as a council at the time were going to implement a police department. And we were able to do that. And that's very exciting. They just launched in January, as we know. And my vision and my passion is still to help and give back. We're not done. There's still a lot of things that we need to do in this community. We're growing quickly, but we need to be able to manage that responsibly. And so we, just opened up a new fire station. So public safety, and I believe all the candidates and those that are sitting on council as well believe public safety is very important. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But my passion is to keep going and to keep building this community as to what our residents want. And we listen to what our residents want. And to do it in a responsible way, to do it fiscally responsible, we have to make some hard choices. We have to say no. We have to say yes to other things. And I just feel like it's my passion to still give back. I love this community. I moved here almost 17 years ago, and I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So, thank you.
Now we'll start back with you. This is your chance to get into a little bit more detail. What do you think should be the town's priorities, and also explain the realities of getting those priorities done?
Okay, well, so for me, being on town council, I see all of the issues, right, that the community is facing. And so our main priority right now is our transportation. And so we invested millions of dollars, have a 10-year plan to help with the roads and to help with the transportation. And so just partnering with our surrounding communities as much as we can, just continuing to fund public safety and transportation kind of go hand in hand. And public safety, we mean the police department as well as the fire department. Our public safety, obviously, when people come to us and say, we need our roads, we need to be able to get around quicker, one thing that comes to my mind is we do, because our public safety personnel need to be able to get around the community. If there is an incident, our public safety need to be able to get around the community, right? So for me, transportation is kind of where we need to be. We're catching up. We're not quite there yet, but we're a lot better than we were, say, a year or 2 years ago. And with the opening of the SR 24 here come mid-August, we're gonna have 2 more extensions come through. Signal Butte will be December, maybe early next year. Will be absolutely amazing for this community. But roads take time, they take money, which we've invested in. And I believe that right now, with the growth that we have, that transportation is probably what I see as our highest priority.
Thank you very much.
So I agree as well with Dawn that transportation is absolutely a key issue, and I know that all of us don't like, the roadblocks when they're put up, but every time I see that, I know that the town's doing the right thing. When you look at the allocations from the council today, they've done exactly what they should be doing in allocating the resources to get that done. And it's not a quick process. I worked in traffic engineering the summer of my freshman year, and that's when you learn, like, even when you're pushing as fast as you can, those things take time. But it's certainly something that is personal to all of us, because we all do the driving around here. For me as well, public safety is probably the number one priority to me. When we see how fortunate we are in Queen Creek, and now we have our own police force, versus other places all around the country, the turmoil that's been there, we don't have that today, and we certainly want to keep our public safety to the level that we continue to not have those things. I have recently, there's a shop owner on Ellsworth, and I was there, and the police officers came by to visit that particular person working at the shop owner, and standard. And he shared that his wife, one of the things they call out, they go out for snakes and these things. He said, yeah, my wife did that. And I said, I bet he beat the 4 minutes to get to his wife to get to that state. I'm sure he had the gold standard there, but I want us to be the gold standard when it comes to public safety as well. Thank you.
Same question to you, your, again, priorities and also the realities of getting those priorities done.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. I've always known that Queen Creek's the best place to raise a family. And I'll tell you, it's about quality of life. And so capital improvement projects are right up there, because we definitely want to improve the time it takes to get around town. And so I understand that there's a process, and they're building roads as fast as humanly possible. But we need to continue to approve projects and allocate funds to make sure that there's access to the 24, to encourage Mesa to finish the road between Germain and the 24. We need to keep that healthy pressure on that which will help our community maintain that quality of life. And part of that, I think, is finishing out our trail system. Having continuity in our bike lanes, on roads that aren't the busiest roads like Ocotillo and Ellsworth, right? We need to have, things that will help us to really feel at home, like I said, and safe. And so public safety, as has been shared, is critical. That means we have the correct number of first responders, they have the right equipment and the right training necessary to bring those response times down. I think that's going to be very, very important as well. And so really just looking at what are our pain points, let's focus on those, and as the funding comes about, we'll continue to expand that with the right types of parks and the needs that the community really desires.
Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Padilla, same question to you. What are your priorities, and what are the realities of actually getting these things done?
So better roads is, you probably all seen my signs out there. They say 3 things on them. They say better roads now, they say support public safety, and they say fiscal responsibility. Those are my main priorities. I also agree that we want to keep a small town feel. We need to manage our growth responsibly. We need to support local businesses, and we can talk about how we can do that a little bit. I would say that there's room for improvement. I would say that we shouldn't accept the status quo. The room for improvement on our roads is we can do more on our roads. We are wasting almost $6 a gallon in gas, traveling around in Queen Creek with lots of lights, with lots of traffic. I think we can do better. There's a reason that they nicknamed Ellsworth Hellsworth. Has anyone ever heard of that phrase? It makes people want to leave the area because there's so much congestion that it's difficult to get to and from the businesses and the jobs that people need to get to. I would propose that we look at things, common sense solutions that we can apply, such as business skills toward the town, such as tripling the shifts that the road construction takes place in so that we can get our roads done in a third of the time. I believe that government should be involved in very few things, and the things that it should be involved in, we should do very well. And then the things that it shouldn't be involved in, we should get out of. Because the taxpayer dollars from Queen Creek residents are sacred, and we need to use those for the things that benefit most of our residents the most, and not waste them on things that we shouldn't be wasting them on. I think that we all have the same goal in mind. The question is how we get there. On the better roads, there's room for improvement. I would just not accept the status quo on that. I want to push our town to use more of our budget towards roads to get them done faster, and I think there's ways to do that. How much time do I have left? Because I can go into other things as well. None? I'm out. Done. Thanks.
Okay, we're done with that. And starting again with you, you touched on this. And what do you think the role of government should be? Because in reality, they're the ones who hold the money, they're the ones who have the staffs and the processes and understand what needs to be done. How do you work with government, with your priorities?
Is this back to me?
Yeah. Can you?
You're better at taking it out than I am. The proper role of government is the most important thing that I want to run on, because there are things that we shouldn't be involved in that we are, and there are things that we should be involved in that we can do more efficiently. So anything that supports any taxpayer dollars that goes toward helping the majority or all of our residents, such as the roads, such as the public safety. I'm big into our public safety and supporting our Queen Creek Police Department, our fire, our medical, and I think that's fantastic, because whenever we have those that serve us that are closer to the voters, that means that we can kick someone out if we don't think they're doing a good job. And that means we can put someone in if we want them to do a better job. And that's a good thing. The less bureaucracy, the better. When it comes to fiscal responsibility and what government should be involved in, there are several different areas that I disagree that we're involved in that we shouldn't be. We can go into those. Like, for example, we have, on fiscal responsibility, we have a temporary sales tax that was implemented to complete a particular project here in Queen Creek several years ago. And who here would, by show of hands, would be surprised that a temporary sales tax has not yet been repealed even though the project was completed, right? So, yeah, I'm not surprised either. That's what happens in government, right? So this sales tax increase that was designed to be temporary is being used as a town slush fund. And at times I think we're supposed to feel all warm and fuzzy inside that we have these green bike lanes that are being used, when in reality we can reduce the burden that people are feeling. We have high gas prices, we have high inflation, we have high cost of living. We should be taking from Queen Creek residents the absolute minimum, and then we should be using those dollars for only the essential items. We're involved in other areas, such as I do not like that the town manages and maintains the Horseshoe Park Equestrian Center. It's not a park. I can't take my kids there. I can't play soccer there. It causes a $1 million shortfall. We bring in $1 million less than it costs every single year. It is a hobby that is used for 1% horse owners, and I love horses. My daughters love them. I hope to have one one day. And I'll just wrap up. For the 99% of non-horse owners, and I don't think that we should be subsidizing, the 99% should be subsidizing a hobby of a 1%.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Same question to you, Mr. DeFleur. How do you get these priorities done specifically and work within the framework of the government so you don't have turnover, so you don't have constant churn of new people in government trying to learn what's going on?
Perfect, thank you. Yes, so you really think about it, the government's there to protect our rights, not to tell us what our rights are. I think that's important. I think that we need to make sure that we have as much freedom and liberty as possible. That includes less regulation to businesses. I just have to say that I'm proud to be part of the chamber because we've worked on a lot of these things, whether it was like the signage code that we recommended to deregulate and not be so strict on, and the town listened, and that went away and improved the opportunities for those in the community. That's a great example of how the government can work together with the private sector to get things done. I feel like we have to look at what is needed overall, and then make sure there's a maximum benefit to those that live, work, and play in our community. And the town has done a phenomenal job in so many ways in terms of improving our credit rating. I think that's important because that saves tax dollars. They always balance the budget. In fact, when the pandemic hit, they reeled in their budget to be prepared for that, and that was a good move, even though revenue actually increased during that time. But again, taking that conservative approach was really, really impressive. And so we have to always be thinking about how we can be, responsible to, again, spend the dollars in the right place, but make sure that, we don't get lazy and are on top of it in terms of what we're doing to work hard for those who live here. And I would just say it boils down to, do you like the direction and the way the town's going? I think being the third fastest growing community in the country says yes, and I want to continue that good work that they're doing.
Oh, you stopped that right on time. Mr. McWilliams, same question. Get a little bit more into your priorities, but also how working within the government to get it done. Because obviously you have a government, there's a town council. How do you work it?
Sure. So I think working with the town staff that handles the planning and zoning is a prime example of being able to work with them. You get to see the challenges that are being presented to them as well, and how they address those problems. You get to see firsthand when you're working with those that work in government, and you get to see the great job that we've done in Queen Creek. I do want to, and I was thinking about that when we get the benefit on this side to listen to what the others said, and I think I totally agree that none of us want more taxes at any time. But the council's done a good job, as Brian even just said. They allocated the funds. It's required in the state of Arizona to do this. And I actually had a conversation, spoke briefly with the town manager, John Cross, about the funding. There's kind of three legs of funding for the town, and the revenue that we get from those are kind of stable for now. But I remember when I moved here and we talked about this in 2008, the town made the hard decisions with the council as well to drastically reduce the staff and not spend money that we didn't have. And that is a tough thing to do in government. And I'm very proud of the council and the town staff for making the kind of tough decisions and not kind of just saying, hey, we're government, we're here just to protect ourselves, which is very easy to fall into. And so knowing that we have people here on staff in the town that have the integrity to do the right thing makes it really easy to do the right thing. I know that when I was working on planning zone, I got to see it firsthand, that they were proposing the right things, and when we would question what they said and give them hard questions, they didn't shy away from it as well. So I will continue to do that. I'll continue to ask the hard questions and make John Cross uncomfortable. I'll probably make Bruce uncomfortable too, as well as the assistant town manager. And I think that's part of the role of the council, and it'll be a priority as well, to always challenge the status quo, knowing that I'm not looking to make them look bad, but rather pushing them to get to the best solutions, and I'll make that my priority. Thank you.
Same question to you, Ms. Olfont.
Thank you. So, actually, I was on town council in 2010 when we had to cut the staff. And that was a pretty hard decision to do, just knowing that you had to lay staff members off, but looking at the big picture, it was the right thing to do because it set the town up to be successful and to have that money set aside and not spend money that we didn't need to at the time because the economy was in a downturn at that time and some things were kind of shutting down and closing down. And we've been able to build that back up just a little bit, right? And so our growth is really taken off. And so government is one big subsidy, right? So it's where you want to spend the money and where it makes the most sense to spend the money that is coming in. So a few years ago, I, being on council, approved or voted to reduce the property tax because we felt at that time, and as you know, your $1.95 in your property tax at the time went straight to public safety. This was prior to us bringing on the police department, but that we knew it would come at some point. So we wanted to help out our residents, so we reduced the property tax on that a little bit. And we have talked about, hopefully in the future, able to reduce the property tax again. I mean, we all don't want to pay taxes. I don't think anybody wants to pay taxes, but your taxes have to be paid into a community that's growing and it has to be used correctly. So I will continue to support those dialogues and continue to support that when the time is right. when we talk again about reducing our property taxes. And so each thing that comes to council, and I know because I can speak from experience, you look at it and what its value is. And so the decisions are made at that time, whether you go forward with that project or not.
Okay, we're finishing up that, and you're back in the crosshairs. How do you characterize the efforts from the town to bring new businesses to the town? And the question that some people have are, who are the winners and losers? How are they picked? Who gets to be in the town and who doesn't?
Okay, so great question. So I get this question all the time. The most famous thing right now is everybody wants a steakhouse. Dawn, please bring a steakhouse to Queen Creek. We want a good steakhouse. I said, do you know any steakhouse owners? Maybe invite them to come over to our economic development and have a talk with them. I mean, we don't go out and pick a business and then have them come into the community.
Right.
And so our economic development staff is top notch. They attend conferences, they are on Zoom calls, they are constantly working in their industry on what businesses are out there that would be a good fit for Queen Creek. And then they send them information, they send them our population, they send them our demographics on what Queen Creek, what Santan Valley, what our border Mesa, what our border Gilbert, right? Because when you're a business, you're kind of looking outside of that as a whole as to what type of business you could get in. And so I believe the town works very well with our economic development staff, very knowledgeable at putting stuff out there. I also encourage the residents to do a grassroots effort. I don't know if you all signed the petition, Bring Dutch Bros to Queen Creek, but that was floating around Facebook, right? It's got to come from a grassroots, and then that is sent then to the business, and then the business says, hey, wait a minute, maybe I need to come here. So then they talk with the town. It's got to be right for the business. If they want to make the investment in the community, then if there is a building available or space available, then they will want to invest in that. We don't say yes or no to those types of businesses. They have to want to come in and invest right here into our community. So our economic development staff does a great job, and I just encourage anybody that wants something to come in and start a petition on Facebook and send it over to that business. So.
Do you need the question repeated?
No, I think I've got it. So, how do you attract businesses to Queen Creek? The market attracts businesses to Queen Creek. That's really just the basic facts of it. We do have a fantastic economic development staff, and they do a great job of promoting the town. Why is it easy for them to do it? Because it's a great town, and you guys make it a great town. So really, the things that we do, a local government does, they promote the town as a great place to be. And again, it's easy here, but the market, I want a steakhouse too, right? I'm from the South and we love to eat, so I want it as bad as all of you, I can promise you. So we'll see. I think a grassroots effort to say, hey, they're going to support it. And again, the good news is when we promote it, we say, hey, and we have people in Santan Valley, another 100,000 people that can help us get a steakhouse, but those same 100,000 people make it hard to drive around Queen Creek, right? So there is some double-edged swords to those kind of, Arizona and the Valley of the Sun is just going to keep growing, right? So I would imagine that you're going to see all of the businesses that you're going to want to see in Queen Creek eventually get here. We have I looked at a study a couple of years ago, the second highest per capita family household income in the metro area. And you're like, wait, we're ahead of Scottsdale? We are ahead of Scottsdale. As we grow and we have more residents, that could taper down a little bit, but right now it's an extremely attractive place for businesses to come. So, if you have one you want, let's talk to them now and get them in, because it's going to fill up, because the market will dictate that it does. Thank you.
Do you need the question repeated?
I think I'm good. I love this because I think we have to become as attractive as possible. So then good businesses will want to come here. I guess I'm done. So.
Well said, Brian.
But honestly, if we continue to have educated workforce, if we have workforce development, or good schools and programs to have people that are able to, fill those jobs. There's a labor shortage. So having triple shifts and stuff, that's a problem when you don't have enough workers, right? And so we need to make sure that we create a very business-friendly environment. I know you heard me say that, but it's important that we invest in infrastructure. I love investment. That's my forte. And if I were to give you $1 and you give me 10 back, I'd make that trade all day long. A good example of this was Costco. I love Costco. I'm happy it's coming here. And when you look at what roads and things, again, this money was not given to Costco, but we needed to create an environment where Costco would be willing to come here versus Eastmark, right? In 1 year, we'll get a complete return on investment from what we did there, right? But what's great about it is going to come every single year after, right? So we need to make sure that we're doing our part to be ready for good businesses that will continue to grow revenues, to continue to allow us to fund public safety and quality parks and things that the community really needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Padilla, do you need the question?
So we do want good businesses to come to Queen Creek. It's absolutely true. I think we're all in agreement with that. I think we disagree on how that should happen. So the free market should take care of this. The free market, like water, will always have its resources flow to the best possible and most efficient use. I do not believe we should be picking winners and losers in government. I do not believe that we should be telling a multinational corporation like LG that we hand them $50 million of our current Queen Creek taxpayer hard-earned dollars in an environment of high gas prices, high cost of living, high inflation prices, and we're going to hand this to a business that's never set foot in Queen Creek. If you have a business, raise your hand. I do. Did anybody here get millions of dollars to move to Queen Creek? And ask yourself, if you do, anyone that's watching, how do you feel about us giving an out-of-country business almost $50 million of our personal hard-earned taxpayer dollars? I think we should play on the same even field. I don't think it's the role of government to get involved in picking winners and losers. And sometimes it might pick winners. Let's just say that the LG plant that does come in does make us money. Well, great, that would be good, except for now we have other businesses that there's distortions in the market. We look at the, so let's say that even if that becomes a good, positive economic inflow for our town, well, we also make decisions that aren't good, like the Horseshoe Park Equestrian Center, which is a good old boys network deal that loses us $1 million a year to subsidize a hobby for the 1% that have horse owners, that are horse owners, right? So I believe that the best thing we can do to bring businesses here is to create the roads and bring the infrastructure in absolutely quickly right now. There are ways that we can do our roads faster. We can contract outside. We don't have to have it all in-house and in-staff. We can look at outside business solutions to apply and cut through the red tape of government to get things done. I think we've seen it that when we build roads and we build great places with utilities available, these businesses will come. We are going to be subsidizing with the LG plant jobs that are not in Queen Creek, that are not in the state, and sometimes that are not even in our own country. And I fundamentally disagree, even if it ends up being an economic
I think we
benefit
need
to us, if that's
to
the way to
follow
go.
up on that question a little bit.
Yeah, please do.
So to clarify, LG is not being given.
No, Chris, I'm going to ask you to be
$50
an interviewer, not a participant in the debate here.
Exactly. To clarify, they're not being handed $50 million, but let's talk about what actually is happening there and how the other candidates would have voted. So let's come back to candidate McClure, and let's talk about the LG deal specifically and what happened there and how you would have voted on that up on the guys.
Yeah, so I really feel like, it's important that we create high wage jobs. And we, like I mentioned, cut down on times to travel to work and to have not just a bedroom community, but a place where people can live, work, and play. And when we look at the number of jobs that particular project will create, I think it's a great project. I would have approved it. And here's the thing, it wasn't we picked them, an RFP went out, an opportunity went out, they expressed interest, they bid, they purchased, they meet all the government regulations of safety and environmental impact, which is very important. Obviously, I don't want something unsafe in my backyard, but no one tends to be, worried about CMC Steel and TRW and these other projects. Of course, they're a Mason. We don't collect revenue. As a community builds out, it's very important that we share the cost of running that community with other organizations besides just the residents and their tax dollars. And so I think if it doesn't hurt us and it helps to provide jobs and to have an economic impact, as long as we are being responsible in that due diligence, which I think the town was. And I know this is controversial, but you understand that we would have had to foot all the roads and infrastructure that bill ourselves unless we shared it with the cost of, in this case, happens to be LG.
So I love the numbers and the analysis probably just as much as Brian. He's a financial planner and I'm an attorney, and I really get into that. And it really boils down to, and I'm going to be kind of the short answer for me on this one. After looking deeper into the things that it brings to the town, it is such a win that I would have voted for it. The revenue that's going to be generated for years and years to come is going to benefit the town. Again, we all want lower taxes. So if we have revenue being generated from these businesses and large sales tax, about half of which at this point is subsidized from people coming, outside of our own town. I just know that it's just such a great thing for the town that I would unequivocally have voted for the plan and had no reservation about it. So I'm glad we did it. I'm glad the council did the right thing and did it. Thanks.
So Olfont, you were on the council.
I was on the council, so I'm sure everybody in this room knows that I voted for that. When we need to diversify our revenues, because if we can diversify the revenues, and what I had talked about before, it lowers the tax burden on the residents. And so we have to think about that. We have to think more long-term as well. And we have a lot of residents coming in. I've been in this community for 17 years, on council for 12, and a lot of the questions that I get answered is, Dawn, I want to work in my community. I want to work, I need a high wage paying job, or my spouse needs a high wage paying job, or my kids, when they graduate from high school or they graduate from college, they have to leave Queen Creek because we don't have those types of employers here to keep our children here and to keep our families here. And so it was years ago when they started having those discussions. Well, we always have that north part of the town for those types of industry type of jobs, that we don't want to put that in the middle of town. You need to have it on the outskirts with the freeway coming in. It just made more sense to come there. And again, LG submitted for that. So when I voted for that, I had to take a lot of these factors into play as to why it would benefit the town. And so that's why and I can't speak for the rest of my council, colleagues, but it was more than just one thing. It was to help our residents. It was, all of these different things. When it goes into a decision, it's not just one way or one benefit or one this. There's many factors and many things that go into that.
Can I respond to that?
One moment. We'll give you an additional minute there. It's important to note of the $46 million that a large portion of it was actually to pick up the infrastructure costs that we would have been obligated to pay anyway, and then there's a reduction in the property tax on $1 billion construction project, as well as waiving some of those fees. All of it contingent on creating those jobs that they promised. So no jobs, they're on the hook for the money that was made. But I'd like to give you that minute to rebut now, so please begin.
Chris, I know you love the LG plant, so it's 4-1 here, and I'm okay with that. I've dealt with those odds my whole life. I think that benefits me. I've seen it said on Facebook by others. It says this is a win for all Queen Creek employees. No, this is a win for some Queen Creek employees at the expense of all taxpayers. That is not how limited government works. That is not how the free market works. It is not up to your local government to decide who comes in and who doesn't. This was a one-bid opportunity from LG. They were the only bidder on this land. I'm fine with LG. I have nothing against them. I have LG appliances in my house. They are welcome to come here if it's on their own dime, but not because we subsidize them. When asking yourself ever if you would support a government tax, government subsidy, ask yourself this question. If untaxed, would you have voluntarily contributed your money for that? And let me give an example. I would voluntarily have paid $5 or $10 every time I need to travel through Ellsworth Road. That is something worth sharing because we all use it. With LG, each family, we have a $50 million expense among 70,000 residents. That's going to come out to about $2,500 per household. Who here would have voluntarily, by show of hands, handed LG $2,500 of taxes that could otherwise be given back to you if your government didn't subsidize that? I don't see any hands raised because I wouldn't either. Can you have one? That's okay. But we have 98 others who don't, right? So I think that we need to have limited government. We need to stay at the free marketplace should decide who comes where. The best thing that we can do to bring businesses here, keep taxes low, deregulate, streamline our business processes to where in the town, when businesses apply for licenses, we make this development process short. And I think there's a way that we can work with our town on development and on businesses that come here. Let's do this quickly and make it easy for them. So I'm a big proponent, and also again, some of these jobs may or may not come here. LG could leave and leave us holding the bag after several years. How about that? How would that look? We could have a recession coming in.
Chris gave you a minute.
What would,
so
what would
I'd
that,
like
what
to
would
go
that
a little
revenue look
over.
like if we had a recession? Would we get our $2.8 billion? Probably not.
Would anybody,
Central planning, I'm against it.
would anybody like to rebut?
Yeah, I can go, I'll go. We have a minute.
Yeah.
So I love the question, but I think it's a great way to set up the question in a way that you get the answer that you want. And I think you, Travis was probably expecting no one to raise their hand on that. But again, I think that's a very easy way to set up a talking point for yourself to get what you want to go across. But it doesn't take into the full analysis of the cost of that $2,000 today may save you money year after year after year in limited tax or even reductions in tax. So those projections also make a difference. We can't make just snap judgments based upon, I never want this, right? Sure, none of us want to pay more taxes, right? That's a given for all of us, but we have to make decisions that are mathematically based and good for the community on so many levels that we can't just pigeonhole it into one area. We have to look at the whole picture when making these decisions. So although I agree many ways in principle with Travis on, we don't want more taxes and we want limited government, but I want to take an approach that looks at all the factors involved instead of pigeonholing into one thing, kind of to make a single pitch rather than looking at all the factors involved. Thanks.
Okay, that's a minute. Anyone else?
I'll just say, when you look at providing thousands of jobs, these are manufacturing jobs where people will be in that beautiful building. It looks like an office building. It's not an eyesore. This isn't the 1950s with smokestacks and whatever, right? But when you see that these, the impact of families being provided for through good jobs, that will have a multiple effect on all the businesses in this community who will shop at their locations, they'll use their services, they'll eat at their store, at the restaurant. They will have a massive impact that, yes, I know is hard to measure, but will overall be a tremendous benefit to our community. And I think it was an excellent investment.
Okay, all right. So I think we start with, now I'm confused, who did we end with? Mr. Padilla.
Go ahead and start.
Try and mess the whole order up, I understand.
One of the things that, now I'm born and raised in Texas, and everyone knows that's a low, small government state. But one of the things that surprised me about being here in Queen Creek was what a flashpoint parks have been, about building parks. And what are your thoughts on plans to build new parks in town? The council has already taken steps to selling bonds in order to create more parks that are needed in the community. Just one anecdote, we had a young man who was drafted by the 49ers, and he recalls as a Pee Wee player having to go to Gilbert to practice because none of the fields were available. So going with that, what are your thoughts on building new parks for the community?
Love them. Love our parks. We came here the first time we did with my family. We went to Freestone Park. We went and we ice blocked down it. And we were like, this place is so cool. We just need to make sure that when we're building them, we do it with fiscal responsibility in mind. Now, you may be shocked, but I'm going to bring up some points here. I think that first of all, you have to give me an extra 30 seconds because this point is just way too good, okay? So we have my three opponents here who are running together on one side. Unfortunately, they made a mistake. Olfont is actually spelled Padilla, and I think they're going to correct that, right? And put me on your sign as well. No, that's untrue. So I'm running as the lone wolf here. I think that we have three like-minded candidates. I totally respect where they're coming from, great people, but there's a difference in how we view government. And that's not how I see it as our responsibility to provide for people. Our responsibility is to provide their basic needs and rights and then get out of their way and let them run the market. When it comes to parks, I think it's a great thing because we all use it, right? We just have to make sure that we're careful and not overspending on our parks, because in other areas, you know, Philadelphia, LA, you see parks that have been overrun and not maintained because the town got in trouble with large budgets. I'll also add on fiscal responsibility. It's been suggested that the town has done a great job on fiscal responsibility. And again, surprise, surprise, I disagree. We have a budget that is almost $750 billion. It just went from $430 million to $730 million recently. We are spending too much money. We could have a recession looming on our hands. What is that going to look like? Did you know that our town budget is equivalent to 1/20th of the entire budget for the state of Arizona in a town of 70,000 people? I also want to say one thing to Angela Scott. I knocked on her door, Ironwood Crossing, and she asked me to share this. She lost her daughter to cancer at 4 years old. She's a great lady. I love talking with her. She told me how great the community was and how they wrapped their arms around her, and she was just fantastic. But she told me this. She said, our town is spending too much money. That's money that could have been given back to us. Travis, I just got home and I spent $7 on a box of cereal and probably spent $3 or $4 of gas just getting to there and back. We need to look at what's good for individuals and families and not top-down central management elitist planning when we make these decisions. Our goal is to get out of the way of the residents and let them pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we can do that through parks, just making sure that we're fiscally responsible.
Okay, thank you for letting us share your thought. And now, same question to you. Parks, again, why has that been such a flashpoint in Queen Creek? And I've been hearing from residents saying that they have to go to Mesa or Gilbert in order to get practice time for the softball leagues or little leagues.
Oh yeah, I've experienced that. I've taken my son to baseball practice in a neighborhood in Eastmart because that's where we could find some open grass, and it boils down to supply and demand, right? If there is a demand for good quality parks, then that's where we look at it and say, hey, is it in the budget? Is it fiscally responsible? And then make sure we build the right kind of parks. So again, we need to continue to ask developers to have their parks within their communities, but they don't build ball fields, soccer fields, baseball fields, things that I think are very important and are in demand for our community. And so the community's been clamoring for decades to get an aquatic center. So the council listened. They're not being irresponsible by the approach they're taking, and I think we need to fund good parks, finish out trail systems like I mentioned, and create more opportunities for community events that can have an economic impact in our community, like a 10K or a marathon. How many people would shop there, eat at our restaurants, stay in the hotels, if they come to an event? That's even possible because we answered the call to finish up those trails and parks.
Very much. Same question to you, Mr. McBroom.
So I'm also a fan of the park system we have, and I think everyone is here in Queen Creek. And I am ecstatic about the aquatic center because all three of my kids were swimmers, and so we wish we could have gone there instead of somewhere else for the practices and the meets as well. So I think and we've seen in the surveys that that's what the citizens want. And again, when we talk about the tax dollars and the tax burden in Queen Creek, it's really not egregious in any way. It's in line with our community, and because they're your dollars, we want to do the things that you want in your community with those dollars. And parks has been a resounding request from the members of the community, and as a member on town council, I would vote for those. Again, just like the other candidates, and I don't think anyone disagrees with doing things in a a fiscally responsible way, right? Parks do not take precedent over transportation and public safety, right? Those are vital things that have to take priority. So as long as we're still using the budget in the proper way, having the correct priorities for the budget, then we can do the things that the community desires and benefits. And another reason I'm so for that, as we grow, it will get more and more difficult for us to have a hometown feel in Queen Creek that we all love. And those that have been here longer, and Brian and Dawn as well, they know that that's why people really want to be here. As we grow, it's harder to connect when we have more people. And so having the parks and those opportunities to do that, I think, will be vital to maintaining what the founders wanted for our town, is to keep that feel.
I think single parents like Angela would disagree that our tax situation is not a burden.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Olfont, you were on the council when those bonds were committed for sale for more parks.
Right, so being here, you know, as long as I have 17 years, I came when my kids were little. So we utilized Desert Mountain Park. That was really the only park that we had, and we had Founders Park, little tiny one. And just over the years, the residents have emailed us, the residents have called us, the residents have spoke. We need more parks. We don't have enough parks for our community. And you know, my kids are older now. I had one graduate last year, one is a senior in high school this year. So in our season of life with our kids, our priorities have changed a little bit for me on what my family needs as parks. But we have a lot of new residents moving in, a lot of new children coming in. And so I don't think any of us up here have said that we don't want parks. We want them, you know, to be built responsibly. And so over the years, you know, we talked about an aquatic center and we talked about a multi-gen center years ago. And it wasn't the right time to do that. And so we did push that off, promised to the builders, and that's what the community, and if you buy a house in that community, you know, if there's a park in your community, that's great. But if there's not, where do you want your park to be? And you know, how close do you want that, and what amenities do you want? And recently, over the last couple of years, people want pickleball courts, you know, so pickleball's a big thing, and we have a few courts, and they want more courts. And so the second phase of Mansell Carter Oasis Park is going to include some pickleball courts, and that is what we are listening to the community, and that is what the residents have told us, is we just want some more parks. And so that's kind of how that got voted.
And I do have to say, until I moved to Arizona, I had not heard of pickleball. I had no idea what pickleball was. So some of you touched upon this, and I'll start with you, Ms. Olfont. There's this feeling, talking to people in the community, writing stories about wanting to keep the small town feel in Queen Creek. It's the fastest growing city in Arizona. A story recently came out in that we're seeing our population just jump. How do you keep that small town feel?
That is a great question, and I was going to touch on this with parks. You know, that's how you meet a lot of your fellow residents. I mean, unless you walk out of your house, or you know your neighbor to your right, or know your neighbor to the left, or know the people immediately in your neighborhood, unless you're involved in church or other, you know, bunco groups, men's clubs, Bible study, really, where do you get to meet other residents from the community? And it's at parks, and it's during events that the town puts on, or it's if you have children, you go to the parks and you meet other parents on that. So I truly believe parks is a great way to hone in and keep that feeling like we're still connected with our residents. Had a very interesting conversation with our very first mayor, Mark Schnepp, about when he was mayor and he was on town council, and it was a really tiny, small community, and what feeling he had compared to what he has now. And he said it's about connection, and it's about staying connected. The more neighborhoods that go in, the bigger we get, but we just have to find those interests that we like, and stay connected with our fellow neighbors. either at a park or at your own neighborhood park or at a group, get involved in your church group. He said that's the way that you're going to continue to have that. The longer you live here, the more people that you get to know. And we have just wonderful residents here. And so they, ask me all the time, Dawn, we want more events like this. It's fun to come out to our community and see all of these residents out here. And this is why we love Queen Creek. This is why we love to be here, and neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah, and I touched on that before as well when I was making my answer to the parks, right? We have places, safe places where we can connect with our friends and family and make friends. And I believe also that we mentioned many times we want to be business friendly. When you're business friendly and you come here, many of the times those are the very businesses that are sponsoring the teams that our kids get to play on, and they provide funds for that, right? But they need places to play those particular sports and activities. So it's a combination of continuing to make the town one of the best places to live, but also one of the best places to do business. When we do those things, it allows us to have these more interactions. And as Dawn said, I agree. And I spoke with Mark Schnepp as well, talking about the very thing. And they had the foresight when they created the general plan and said, this is what we want to do for the town, and we've worked to keep true to that because they knew it was going to grow. It's amazing the things that they knew back in 1989 when they were working through these issues and how well it's held up even today. So I support keeping that by keeping us to have the ability to have those activities, to interact. Part of that is on us, and I'm preaching to the choir here because you are active citizens and you get out and go do things. You're here tonight, and that proves that you do that. And most of our residents do that. As we grow, we have to keep doing that. It will make the town remain the great place that it lives. And I support the decisions that have been made on council to continue to do that, and I'll do the same.
I love this topic. I have this vision of connecting with nonprofits and churches and great organizations like the Schnepp Farms is a great entertainment solution. Sossman has Hayden Farms. There's Olive Mill. There's these great opportunities that we can partner with and continue to support. In fact, in partnership with future Mayor Wheatley and the other council, I want to do something that's called For Our Town that brings us together on a regular basis to discuss this, so we can have that connection, because it is the people that really makes this community special. And I was raised here where you help your neighbor, you serve others, you be there for one another. And as we create this environment through parks and trails and events and good recreational activities, we can, and service is a big one. I've served at Queen Creek Botanical Gardens. I've served at different facilities that need our help, and as we do that, we connect and feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves, and that will help truly to keep the country feel and that small town special environment that we all know and love.
Still on parks, right? Yeah, we love our parks. Our parks are fantastic. My daughter plays soccer. We go there 2 to 3 times a week at Carter Mansell Oasis Park. That's where our club team plays. They're just great. A couple of important things for us, because this is just not an issue of yes on parks or no on parks. It really just depends on each issue, right? We need to watch what we spend on them. But one of the things that's important to note is we have, 3 minutes from the Queen Creek boundaries, we have a northern boundary where we have the largest built sports complex in America. And another 5 minutes from our boundaries, we have a 286-acre publicly operated park less than 5 minutes from our western boundary.
So how does that relate to what we were talking about, the small town feel?
Yes, it relates to small town feel in this way. So we don't need to overspend on parks, first of all. And second of all, what I really like about our parks, do you know where we got to know most of our neighbors when we were in Cortina? Is the small parks that are listed, that are around the development. So in Cortina, I believe there's 7 or 8 or 9 parks that were developed by the developer, and then they're maintained by the HOA. Why is that great? Because then the local residents have an incentive to want to make sure that they take care of these parks and that they're not overspending on them and that they build them to size. And I really like that. That is where we met a lot of our family and our friends when we moved to Cortina. It's a fantastic place to go meet people. It does bring a sense of community, and when you meet new people there, you have a sense that you're in a place that you like and you belong, and that does maintain a small town feel. That is important as we continue to grow, that we have the spirit of maintaining that small town feel in Queen Creek, so I'm grateful for that.
Okay, thank you very much. And you actually have the honor of answering the first question from the audience. We just got a couple of them. Some of them you already answered, but the one that stood out was, where do you see Queen Creek in 5 years in regards to agriculture, and how do you foresee protecting this?
Yeah, protecting our agriculture. So there are agriculture owners who I think will never sell their land. I've spoken to some of them, and it really does enhance the beauty of Queen Creek to see that. I mean, we all like driving past these roads and seeing just green fields out in front of us. It's one of the things that is a characteristic of Queen Creek. I like that. Ultimately, I fall on the side of, we do have a general plan, and I like that, but the general plan was not a plan forever. It has changed throughout the years. Ultimately, I'm a believer in property rights, and we should be able to do what we want with our property as long as we balance that with public safety concerns as well as town resources like utilities and roads and things like that. So when it comes to agriculture, I can't tell a developer whether or not, I mean, the Barney family, right? When they want to sell their agriculture, that's their property to sell, and that's their right to do so. You know, we have, you know, the Earnhardts, for example, that may not want to sell theirs because they love the field. That's great too, right? So it does provide that small town feel, but ultimately I can't tell them what they can do with their property. But agriculture is going to be important, and we could get into a whole different topic, which I won't dive into, but just for us to know that we have some water issues coming up in the near future, and we need to make sure that we're responsible for that as well. So,
Okay,
thank you.
very much. Mr. McClure.
Thank you so much. I did grow up on a farm, and I love farmland. And it's interesting to note that actually houses use less water than farms. So it's kind of funny how you get, you know, this paradigm shift of I only want, you know, farmland to I believe also in property rights. And so we do have to do proper zoning. But if a farmer has you know, risked it all and worked that land for decades, and he decides it's time to move on, he doesn't have family, wants to continue, then that is their choice, and we honor that, respect that, and we can't tell them that they can't, because some people in power or government forget who owns that land, and so we have to be very respectful of that. Of course, I don't want a toxic waste dump going in my backyard, so it's got to be what, you know, is proposed to go there, something that will help the community and provide what that community needs. And so I think one thing that we can do though is encourage, you know, and provide an environment where there's incentive to continue to have that agri-tainment, right? We support those projects, and economic development promotes those activities to where it's financially viable to continue to have an Olive Mill, right? Or a Schneff Farms, or a Hayden Mills, or something of that nature that really helps with that country feel and continue to have that small town environment. So we'll do our best. It's a challenge, but you know, ultimately we don't own the land, and so we'll just you know, leave it at that.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I mean, I got to serve with one of those large landowners on planning and zoning, Steve Sossaman, and having spoken with him, and Steve has sold some of their land. We have Sossaman Estates, right? And speaking with Mark Schneff, I had a more detailed conversation about him, and my esteem for him wanting to even higher. His land today, if it was sold, is worth $150 million probably, and instead, he chooses, and he said, you know, he chooses to do agri-tainment, he said, which is even probably less profitable for him than farming. And, you know, that's really defines for me what Queen Creek is. When you, even though I know he could sell and he could be done, he chooses not to today. Now, that may change in the future, and I totally respect his rights to make that decision. And as Brian said, you know, we want to make sure the right things go in if he does make that decision, but we have to respect that. And again, Brian said he grew up on a farm, and I grew up in Arkansas, and if you guys went there, you'd think the whole place is a farm, right? So I love the green as much as anybody, right? I love the open spaces as much as anybody. But we also have to know the realities of this area and a growing town, and there is probably a price point. Thankfully, 150 million is not enough for Mark Schnepp today, and we appreciate it, but who knows if it's 500 million down the road, that may have to happen, and I will not begrudge someone doing that, because they eked out that existence, they put in the hard work, and it is their property ultimately in the end.
Thank you. So I grew up in Phoenix and Tempe. There was no farms where I was, so I was a city girl over there. So when we moved to Mesa and then eventually moved out here to Queen Creek, way back when, it's so beautiful out here to see the open space, and but getting to know some of our owners, our farm owners over the years, and like Brian said, it's their family property, and so they have rights, and so I support their property rights to do what they want to do with their farm. I had a conversation with Mark Schnepp as well, and he said, Dawn, it's much harder to run a farm. He's like, do you know I could just sell this and Carrie and I could, be out of here? But he chooses to keep that. And so, he submits different stuff. When he had part of his land go to the cemetery, that was a big change for Schnepp Farms over there. And so just to be supportive of those that still own the farms. The Barneys, for instance, they wanted to sell off their farm. They were done. They had made a decision as a family, and so now they wanted to know, okay, I want to move into the next step of that. So obviously, government cannot tell them what they can and cannot do with their property. Agriculture and our agritainment here in Queen Creek is a huge part of Queen Creek. Schnepp Farms and Olive Mill and Sossaman Farms, and I know Steve Sossaman is going to be expanding on his property to bring more of that Hayden Flour Mill education that they got over there from Tempe, brought that here into Queen Creek. All of them are nationally known. They are doing wonderful things for the community. So to me, they're kind of the gem here in the community when it comes to agritainment. I'm not sure, like Tempe has that over there. So I will totally support them and, on what they want to do on keeping their property.
Okay, well, that was the last question. It was one from the audience. And I would like to thank you all so much, everyone in the audience, for being so patient and for listening. And also, of course, to our candidates, Mr. Padilla, Mr. McClure, Mr. Williams. I got a lot of mix to go. And Ms. Olfont, thank you very much for taking the time and educating the audience and the people about what you stand for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.